So, it's been a long and ugly 4-week process, and let me tell you, I've seen things I wouldn't want to describe to the most grizzled veteran. I seen screws loose, I seen bolts also loose. Most things were loose, the victim was a chair. But let me tell you the one thing that you came here to hear. You're here to find out who did it, right? Who took that poor chair and struck it down in the prime of its career. Well, not exactly the prime, the thing was a mess. The thing's back was kind of falling apart to the point where, from what I understand, it was given a certain no-nat 1 some pretty bad back problems. But don't you worry, because it got taken care of. And thanks to your help with all that falsified evidence, oh, we got him. We got that cat, that dirty void, going behind bars for at least 11 minutes. I mean, she's adorable. What do you want me to do? If you're cute, you get away with it. That's how it works. What, were you expecting closure? A punchline? What do you think? You expect to be giggling at the results? What do you think this is, a joke? There ain't nothing funny about murder. See, that chair is dead. Going to the great junkyard in the sky. If you were expecting some witty bow or fancy puzzle to put all together, no. Because that would have involved me putting in a lot more effort to throw this all together, and this month was hard enough as it is, so let's get on with the Investigator guide, alright? I'll do better next time. Next time there's a murder, gonna do a lot better. So, you're here to learn a thing or two about the Investigator class in Pathfinder 2e. Well, who better to teach you all the ins and outs about this class than me, Detective Finder, fake investigator of the stars. So, how about I give you 5 little tipperinos to help you play this class while continuing to do this really annoying accent. You sick of it? Good. Should I take this out of my mouth? Am I gonna get demonetized? YouTube, you gonna demonetize me for putting a little brown stick in my mouth? Probably. Which is why I gotta say thank you so much to all the members of the No Nat One's Patreon page. Without them, this whole channel and all these silly little videos wouldn't exist. In fact, you can click a link in the description to pledge for $1, $5, $10, or $20 a month to get your name on that list with all those cool people. That interests you? Go for it. No pressure. They're just cooler than you. Let's start with tip number 1, which is already going to be a way to bend the rules of the class a little bit. If you're playing an investigator, chances are you know how to pursue a lead and, more importantly, gain your investigation bonus to certain skill checks. This is usually used for gathering information and recalling knowledge, or typically any kind of mental ability score related skill check related to the subject of your investigation. But did you know that the book only says that it's usually for mental skill checks? This is because, with a good enough argument, you can apply that bonus to other things if it directly relates to your investigation. The best example I can give is that if you're hanging off of a ledge and the murderer you've been tracking is running away right then and there, well, guess what? You can say, GM, may I apply my investigation bonus to my athletics check to pull myself up so that my case, my lead I've been pursuing, don't get away. That's a really good argument, and I think no GM would ever say, no, that doesn't apply to your lead, because obviously it does. So even though using your investigation bonus is mainly for gathering information and tracking the subject, if you can make a case for a physical skill that will in turn get you closer to the subject or the lead you've been pursuing, you can go ahead and apply that nice little +1, +2 at higher levels to the physical skill as well. But there's a really important caveat to all this, and that's not to make it a GM versus player debacle. Don't slow down the table, don't fight back and forth about what does and doesn't apply to the lead. Players, if the GM says no, take their word. GMs, be lenient enough. If it makes sense, give it to them. You know, don't let them, say, climb to the top of a roof so they can get a better view of the concert because the lead they might be pursuing might be a backstage stagehand that they might be able to see from the top of that roof. No, they don't get an investigation bonus to the athletics check to climb that wall, but they would get one to a perception check to try to find the guy. You know what I'm saying? At this point, I'm legitimately curious if YouTube is going to demonetize the video if I keep waving this thing around. We'll find out. Now, tip number 2 is an important one, and that's that you need to have a good backup plan on your turn when devise a stratagem doesn't go as planned. You see, when you use devise a stratagem, you roll that d20, and if you roll a 2 on the dice, then if you attack the target your stratagem was devised for, you're attacking with a 2 on the dice, which means you need a backup plan. Luckily, in the remaster, the investigator's been given the best backup plan of all with the skill stratagem. Now, if you choose not to strike the target of your devised stratagem, but instead use a skill action that involves the target, you get a nice fat +1 to the skill bonus. Say, trying to demoralize them, to scare them, maybe use deception to create a diversion and sneak away. Hell, even using recall knowledge, you're gonna get this bonus. This is great to have, but you gotta make sure you have the skill actions lined up to take advantage of it. Luckily, you're an investigator. You get a bunch of skill increases, you get a bunch of fancy skill feats. You're gonna have a lot of these backup plans installed onto your character. Just make sure you know what they are so you don't go scrambling around your character sheet after you roll that too, you know what I'm saying? There's also the other solution of just attacking a different target. No, you won't get to apply your intelligence to the attack roll or anything like that, nothing special. You're not going to get your strategic strike damage bonus, but it's better than just using the 2 and missing, you know what I'm saying? You devise a stratagem on Goblin A, you roll a 3. Boo-hoo, you just decide to strike Goblin B instead. That pre-rolled dice only applies to the first target you devised against. That second attack, it's going to be weaker, but at least you got a chance to hit. In ways like this, the investigator almost just gets 2 chances to attack, but they waste an action checking what their roll's going to be and then saying, nah, I don't want to use it, or using it and obviously being happy about it. So have a backup plan, whether it's attacking a different target than your original subject or using a skill action like Demoralize on them to help impact the battle, even if you're not going to hit them physically that turn. Now, tip number 3 is a big one. The Investigator is a very good class, very strong at its core. Devise a stratagem and strategic strike, plus all the skill increases and skill feats they could ever want. That's already fantastic. Don't, though, forget about your subclass. All your different methodologies are incredible. It's one of the few classes I can confidently say that there is no wrong choice for a subclass. Most classes have 1 or 2 dead options, like a Fury Barbarian. But when you're talking about the Investigator, all 4 of them knock it out of the park. Fenway, go! Sports, specifically in New York. Free alchemical items, free recall knowledge, better battle medicine that restores more hit points and has a higher frequency of once per hour instead of once per day. Hell, even the one that's mostly designed for roleplay that gives you the pointed question option still inflicts off guard as long as you succeed at your skill check. That's fantastic. All 4 of these subclasses should be a major part of your gameplay style for your Investigator. Now, obviously, it's not a hard and fast rule. If you chose the alchemical subclass, you don't have to use your alchemical items every single combat, but make sure you don't forget about them either. It's so easy to get locked in to your devised stratagems and your attack stratagems and your skill stratagems and all your skill feats and all that jazz. It's easy to forget about your subclass, but do yourself a favor, write a note somewhere, because let me tell you, they're game-changing. Some people might say, oh, recall knowledge ain't that great, but let me tell you, if it's for free, once per 10 minutes, free recall knowledge going into a fight, you can learn weaknesses, you can learn high-low saving throws. It's fantastic. You can't go wrong with any of the Investigator subclasses so long as you remember to use them. This next tip is more involved about how you're going to go about building your Investigator, because in the weirdest way, the Investigator is almost more similar to a fighter or a monk than they are to a rogue. Now, why do I say that? They get subclasses and fighters and monks don't, but it's because of their feat selection, as we'll cover in tomorrow's video, which if it's already out, there's a link right there if I remember to add it. But Investigator feats are incredible. Just like their subclass, they help dictate exactly what kind of character you want to be playing. Even right at level 1, they cover so many different gameplay styles. If you want more skill versatility, take Flexible Studies. If you want more combat advantage, take something like Known Weaknesses or Takedown Expert. And if you want your GM to hate you, take That's Odd. I'm not kidding. If you take that feat, I am going to find your address, hop on a plane, make my way over, and chew you out for 3.5 hours for taking my least favorite feat and making your GM's life unnecessarily complicated. Capiche? Other cliche Investigator terms? Bub? Now, why do I say they feel similar to a monk and a fighter? Well, the monk and the fighter, you build out your character specifically through your feat options. Without your feat options, you're playing pretty much the same monk and fighter as everybody else because they don't get a subclass. Aside from your ability scores and ancestry and whatnot, the class is the same at the base. Now, obviously, Investigator does get a subclass, but their feat selection is so impactful on their gameplay style, it's approaching the level of customizability as the fighter or the monk, and that's what's incredible about the Investigator. You get your subclass to help support a certain gameplay style, and you can accentuate that gameplay style with certain feat selections, or you can go with something totally different. You know, you can get some roleplay feats, but maybe you took a more combat-oriented methodology, like the Forensic Medicine. The Investigator is one of the most customizable classes in the the game in a system that's already incredibly customizable. Being able to make your character from scratch, pick a subclass that complements a certain gameplay style, pick feats to either double down or expand your available gameplay styles, or even just give yourself a different skill proficiency every single morning. Fantastic options! A lot of classes that get subclasses have really subpar early feat selections because they get so much power from their subclasses. In fact, most subclasses give them a feat anyway. But the Investigator gets amazing subclasses that gives them skill feats, it gives them skill train proficiency, it gives them unique abilities they can use, and they still get to choose whatever first level feat they want, and all of the first level feats, except for that's odd, are amazing on the Investigator. So do a little bit of research on the feats you might want to pick for your Investigator. You'll be amazed at how much they can change and add to your gameplay style on an otherwise relatively strong class, even before you pick your feats. And my final tip for the Investigator once again involves that classic devise a stratagem problem. You roll to devise a stratagem against the boss and uh-oh, you rolled a 2 on the die. What are you going to do about that? Well, you're not going to strike the boss with a 2 on the die, you're just going to critically miss. And maybe you don't want to do something, maybe you already demoralized them, maybe you don't have any skill actions you think are impactful enough. Well, let me tell you a little bit of a workaround, a little around that weakness of the Investigator. You see, the dice you roll for devise a stratagem only applies to the next strike you make against a target. Well, let me tell you some good news. Trip, grapple, shove. They may have the attack trait, but you know what they don't have? A strike attached. Hell, if you pick up something like an archetype that gives you an offensive cantrip like Frostbite or Ignition, it may be an attack roll, but it's not a strike. That's a spell attack roll, which is completely different. So there's a lot of ways to get around that weakness of the Investigator of getting locked out of an aggressive action against the target because you rolled too low on devise a stratagem. And for that same reason, that's actually why I advise people against taking athletic stratagem. Now don't get me wrong, athletic strategist is still useful if you are dumping your strength stat and don't want to use it at all, but still want to grapple. That's completely usable. But hear me out. You make an Investigator, you got a decent intelligence stat, you can still have a good strength score. Which means you roll to devise a stratagem, you roll low, cool. You're just gonna roll normal athletics with your normal strength score that's almost as good as any of your mental skills. Sure, you can't add the bonus from the skill stratagem because this is not an intelligence, wisdom, or charisma based skill, but it's still a great option. If you know your normal strike is going to miss, grapple them instead. You know, you can pump up your skills so much as an Investigator because you get twice as many skill increases as any other class in the game besides like Rogue and Swashbuckler. So keep your athletics stacked up. Get your strength to +2. If you started at +3, then by level 5 you can get it to +4. You're gonna be great at athletics. There's nothing wrong with an Investigator who's as strong as they are smart. And if there's one thing the Brooklyn accent's really good at saying, it's about how smart it is, you understand? Is this Brooklyn? Boston? I think it's more Brooklyn, kind of like a bastard child of both. So yeah, there's plenty of ways to sneak in alternate aggressive options even if you fail your devise a stratagem roll that don't involve a strike. Takes a little bit more research and a lot of looking at archetypes and optional things, but there are ways around it, I promise. And the more you research, the more you're gonna get out of this class, because the Investigator, very true to its namesake, is sort of just about digging deep and finding all the details to abuse them in the way that suits you the best. I want to give another huge shout out to all the members of the Know Not One's Patreon page. Thank you to all of you so much. If you'd like to get your name on the list, link in the description. I promise you, I will not be doing this voice for the entirety of tomorrow's video. Take it easy, and I'll see you there. Can't believe Squid killed Chad.